Vacula here with the Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast with a special video from a new online poker site, ClubWPT Gold. This launched maybe around December, January. Recording now in February of 2025. There is a great overlap with miles, points, credit, and poker, as you can deposit buying what they're calling sweeps coins in order to play poker. So for the past week or so, I've been depositing 500 at a time. You could buy $500 in sweeps coins, which are kind of like poker chips, for $499.99 using credit. Here at the bottom of the screen, it's showing I have a 30-day purchase limit, a 7-day purchase limit, and a daily purchase limit. So I'm at the cap or close to it of the 30-day purchase limit. I've used credit to buy these sweeps coins. As you can see, I currently have $58.60 in my account. I've deposited close to $6,000, and it's tracking how much I've played and how much I can redeem or cash out. So here, 36.83.40 unplayed, 2,177 redeemable, meaning played. So with just a few sessions in a few hours, I've been able to play through over $2,000, and I bought in with credit. So this is valuable for those looking to reach sign-up bonuses, to get credit card spend in, to leverage 0% APR, or to get retention bonuses. And for those unfamiliar with miles and points, but might be familiar with poker, you'd always want to buy in with credit here. Because if you're signing up for a new card like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, and there's an offer to spend $4,000 in 90 days, get a bonus 60,000, 70,000 points, whatever it is, it's very easy to just buy in on ClubWPT and spend without really spending, as this is just buying into poker. So it'd be madness depositing with debit or your checking account if you could just buy in with credit, gamble responsibly, use credit responsibly, play good poker, play through the money and withdraw it, or perhaps just keep money in the site and keep playing after the initial playthrough. But I know many of my listeners want to find ways to manufacture spend, and this is a great opportunity to do it as long as you're good at poker. So we're in the lobby. You can see No Limit Hold'em 1, 2, 4. This has been the game that I've been playing. This is a triple blind game, or the blinds are $1, $2, and there's a mandatory straddle. So this is a 1, 2, 4 game with a $400 buy-in. And you could filter the games. It's showing here I'm on the sweeps coins. You have to click sweeps coins to show the real money games. The gold coins are just fake money or fake chips, really. So you can filter by high stakes, no high stakes games, no mid stakes games. So we're at low stakes, and we could see several 1, 2, 4 tables. These 3 are full. So this is 8 p.m. Pacific on a Sunday, and we have a lot of tables open. So let's pick this 1, 2, 4 game with 4 players, and hopefully the rest of it will fill up. We'll take a seat, talk a little bit about poker strategy, how the game works, and hopefully in time you can learn poker and make some money and get through some credit card spend on here. So you can see there are 8 seats at the table, 4 seats available at the moment. We'll mute the sounds for you that could be distracting while I'm talking. So we'll go ahead and mute the sounds, and I can take a seat at any time. I'm just going to wait for a few more players. So I'll show you a few things before I take a seat. You can see the player names. The player names, this is not a random game. You're going to see some of the same names again and again, and their current stacks. So you can buy in at this 1, 2, 4 game of up to 400. So those that have more than 400 have won chips in this session. And those who are below are probably bad players. They're buying in for less than the max, or they're not reloading. It's a signal that someone's not good. You can see this player, Big D 6969. They've played 2,800 hands. So they have a decent volume here. You could see here VPIP. This is voluntarily put in pot, meaning that they're choosing to play 33% of hands, a little high. So it might be a sign that they're not as good, although 33 isn't too bad. PFR, pre-flop raise. So this meaning they're taking an aggressive action pre-flop rather than just calling the bet. 18%, that seems about standard. And 33.18, those are the two stats you see here. So we're looking for a high VPIP. If we see someone with like 50%, 40%, they're probably playing way too many hands. This person's 26.15, a little bit on the tighter side. Over here, Captain Kangaroo 48.16, the smaller sample, 442 hands, so just a few hours. So this person, 48%, they're playing too many hands. Gorilla Math, this seems to be pretty reasonable here, 24.18 stats and 23.80 total hands. So they've played several hours. So we could take a seat at some point once more players come in. Big D playing a little bit too much. This player a little bit on the tighter side. Kangaroo on the looser side. Gorilla Math 24.18 seems pretty reasonable player. So we want to try to have the potentially bad players on our right, so we have position. We'll talk about this a little bit later in the video, the power of position. Now, if the button moves here, it's going to be the small blind, the big blind, and the straddle. So I want to sit and not have to pay additional blinds, although the button's probably going to move here past the empty seat. So small blind, big blind, straddle. So if I sit here, I'm going to move into the straddle position and not have to pay additional blinds. So I'll buy in for 400 if I get it in time. A little bit fast there. Okay, so I did get in the straddle. We have Queen 7 suited. I changed the color of the cards, as you can do this in the settings, changing to make blue cards for diamonds so that you're not having to look at the suits themselves. There'd be 2 black and 2 red cards. So I like having the different colors. And I win, everybody folded. So now I'm ahead $5. New players sitting 20.15, so seems to be pretty decent stats. We just have a garbage hand here, Queen 7. So you can click the fold button down here, just move on to the next hand. This player raised to 11, so I'm just going to fold. I was probably going to fold anyway. Hands like this that aren't suited, that are very disconnected, they're just going to be trash hands. If we play a hand like Queen 7 and we even get a queen, we could lose to a bigger kicker, just lose the hand. So that's just not very good. Jack 4, another garbage hand here. This player raises a 10. So for those who are just totally unfamiliar with poker, you're going to get 2 cards to start a hand. There's going to be a betting round. So this is going to go the button, the small blind, the big blind, and the straddle, and it's just going to go clockwise. So the betting round, you can either call or raise. And this is interesting. We're just going to pause here. So this player just goes all in, a $10 bet, $10 small bet there, and then this player just goes all in. Perhaps he was just short stacked. So yes, it's going to go clockwise. So we have a good hand here. So this is a hand. We have position. We have the button. I'm just going to start the raise to 20 here in most cases. So this is going to be 3 times the straddle plus the additional money. And I'm just going to round up to 20, just make an even number. Ace Queen suited, a strong hand, very high potential for big cards. This player just goes all in with a short stack. They're probably a bad player. They're probably pretty loose here. So we really can't go wrong calling this small all in with the Ace Queen suited. We could be up against jacks or 10s and be flipping. And we get up against King 10. So we win with, no, we lose. They ran out of flush with 4 cards. But we got it in as a favorite with Ace Queen of spades and lost to the King 10. So bad news for us. We're going to go to buy in and top off our stack. This doesn't have an auto top off feature. So if we lose and go below 400, we just have to go up here, click buy in, and we're able to rebuy. So we did make the correct call there with the Ace Queen. We were ahead of the King 10 pre-flop, and it looks like we're going to win, but the player got really lucky and ran out for a flush. 5 cards at the same suit, 5 clubs. So we got it in there as a good favorite. And with poker, we're going to be process oriented rather than results oriented. So if we make good bets, we play well. Sometimes we're going to get unlucky and lose, but in the long run, it's going to work out for us. So we got a little bit off topic there, as we had a good hand to play. So there's the initial round of betting pre-flop. And then we see 3 cards that come out as the community cards for the flop. So your 2 whole cards play with a 3 on the flop, and you're just competing against the other players to make the best 5-card hand. So in this case, the player had a pair of queens. The other player had deuce 3, just completely missing. We have pretty trashy hand here with 10-5 of hearts. This is probably going to be a fold, or if we get lucky, it folds to us. This player open limped on the button, so this is just more of players being bad. If you're on the button and it folds to you, you should just be either folding or making an aggressive action and trying to win the pot. So to just open limp on the button, just a really bad play. And here we just really have nothing. We could check and try to steal, but this player bets 10 and we could probably just give up here. 2 aces and a 7 on the board. We have 5-10. So we really have nothing going on here except for the possibility of getting a flush, but runner for the flush and nothing else going on in the hand. We're fine to just dump it. So more signs of a bad player. Captain Kangaroo, King 2 offsuit, garbage. We're just going to fold this hand. It allows us to just pre-fold and move on to the next hand. Now, I have been keeping, you could see it's going to merge with the screen. I have been keeping notes on some players as I've been playing, adding the blue color for the fishy or bad players and a red color for the more aggressive bad players. And I could just take notes on players during the session and carry these notes over to future sessions. So I have an idea of what's going on, as I'm not going to remember every username that's going on. So we're just folding the 8-10 offsuit to the raise from Gorilla Math. And I'm going to make a note of this player, Captain Kangaroo. Just trying to keep notes here in alphabetical order. And we saw Captain Kangaroo type here on the other screen that you can't see, but we'll put it in there and then I'll bring it to the main screen. I'm on the go, so I don't have a big screen here, just using my laptop. King 7 offsuit. Nonsense, just going to fold that kind of hand. If your goal is to run through the money, you're going to deposit your 6,000 eventually and play through the money and withdrawal. You're just going to want to play a tighter game and not really get yourself in a lot of marginal situations. You might want to take on a more aggressive strategy as you learn more about poker. And I think a lot of training resources online. I like the website crushlivepoker.com and also Red Chip Poker. They have a lot of training materials that you can watch at very low cost and learn how to play this game. I'll talk a little bit about strategy and a little bit about what's going on. But we're probably just going to see a lot of folding and uninteresting hands, but I'll still try to keep it active for you and explain what I'm doing, what the other players might be thinking. That was, okay, Queen 4, some more nonsense. So I'm on the notes here with Captain Kangaroo. Trying to put notes. Captain Kangaroo, all in short stack, King 10. And then we saw some other loose calls. So I'm just going to take notes on my other screen here in a document. And that way, if we see this player in the future, we'll have more of an idea of what's going on. So players like this that just have this minimal amount and they're just pushing, they're just calling off the all-ins, they're probably not going to last too long. They're not rebuying when they're down to 100. So this is probably all the money they have in their account or all that they're willing to play for today. And I'm just buying in to top off my stack of 400. I just want to have the most I can, so that way I can get into advantageous situations and make more money. We see Ken Fab 30 just sat 59% of hands, over 279 hands. This player is just way too wide. They're just calling way too many hands. As you see, we're just going to be folding a good portion of hands that just are very, very marginal. King 7. So we have 2 spades. We could potentially make a flush, but the cards are disconnected. There's no straight opportunity. And if, again, we do get a high card, if we get a king at some point in the hand, our kicker may not be good. So we want to favor hands like King 10, King Jack, King Queen, Ace King that can also make straights and have good kickers. King 7, just a nonsense hand. We're just going to be folding most of the time. Ken Fab makes another mistake here. They're min raising. So the betting is 1, 2, 4. and Ken Fab raises to 8. I'm talking about going triple the straddle and adding the additional money to make a reasonable raise size. Because if you're min raising, you're just incentivizing too many callers, and we don't want that. You're not getting much money in the pot either. But when you make an aggressive action, you want to be making decent sized bets, not be min raising. Ace 7 suited, it's an okay hand, but we're in bad position. So we're the first one to act pre-flop, and we're going to be out of position to 4 players if we decide to play the hand. So Ace 7 suited under the gun, first to act here. First after the straddle, I just fold this hand. If we have something like Ace 10 suited, Ace 5 suited, I like those hands better because they can also make straights. And the 10 is, of course, a better kicker than a 7. So what happened here, Gorilla Math raised on the button, Ken Fab called in the straddle position. And Gorilla Math doesn't bet. That's really interesting. On a board like 10 deuce 5, I imagine that Ken Fab playing here 59% of hands, they're just going to miss a lot. This board really isn't connected, meaning that there aren't too many straight possibilities. There isn't a flush possibility. So if I were Gorilla Math raising on the button, I'd be betting in that situation, regardless of my 2 hole cards. I'd probably just be betting 2/3 the pot, a very, very large percentage of that time against a player like this, especially that's so wide that they're calling 50% of hands. They're just going to miss. We have Queen Tray off the San Francisco busboy. We're just going to fold that hand, another garbage hand. We're getting an interesting price, but it's still a bad hand. But Ken Fab raised to 33. So by a price, if it's 11, call 11. There's this dead money in here. There's the ante. We're getting an okay price to make the call, but it's just such a trashy hand. And then when Ken Fab made it 33, we're not calling $33. So Ken Fab made this small re-raise pre-flop and just goes all in into the $100 pot, which is probably fine. Takes it down onto the next hand. Hopefully we get some playable cards for this video. Jack Queen offsuit, a decent hand here. There's some potential, although we are out of position in the blinds, so that's not great. So there's going to be a raise here from the cutoff. The player second to the button and a caller. It's kind of close. I think it's okay to call here because when we call, Big D's probably going to call because they're getting a good price. There's 36.40 in the pot. Call 8 to win 40 plus the antes. And unfortunately, we just don't have anything here. In the situation against 3 other players, we didn't connect with the board. We're generally going to be checking to the pre-flop raiser, the player who made the aggressive action pre-flop. But here we're not going to be calling a bet. There's really nothing going for us here on Ace 4 deuce, and we have a queen and a jack. So I'm just going to fold here. And Ken Fab raises this $30 bet. We'll see what happens. Perhaps Ken Fab has a 2 pair, Ace 4, Ace deuce, deuce deuce, 4 and everyone's all in. So we have Ace 5, which is interesting. That's a pair and a straight draw. And Co-Rose called it off with the pair and the straight draw also. So Ken Fab maybe a semi bluff there, but ended up winning with the best hand as Co-Rose had the pair and straight draw as well. We have Jack 4 suited in the small blind. I think this is fine to just fast fold this type of hand. We're going to rebuy. Some players can get into trouble just playing these speculative suited hands out of position. Jack 4, there's no connectedness there. Some players, oh, well, it's suited. I'm just going to call. Maybe I'll get lucky, get a flush, but sometimes you're going to get overflushed. You flop a pair, your kicker's probably bad. So I think pretty easy decision to just fold here. So we'll see what happens with this hand. Another ace high flop. As you can see, there's also an ante going on at the start of every hand on this site. Everybody has to put up 50 cents that goes into the pot. So perhaps this creates a little bit more action. It definitely makes it a little bit more expensive, raising the stakes of the game to some extent. And then it's 1, 2, 4 plus the ante. So it's similar to a 2-5 game that you would play in person that maybe has a 500 max buy-in, like Bellagio, Las Vegas. But here we're online, of course, and we're using credit to play poker, which is fantastic. Here, another Queen Tray offsuit, easy fold to the pre-flop raise, and I think just a general fold. Maybe not too much button stealing going on when you have the straddle, because the straddle is going to tend to call to defend more. So maybe we'll be a little bit tighter with our button raising range, although it is enticing to open pretty wide to try to steal the blinds, the straddle, and the ante. But I'd rather wait for better hands than queen tray offsuit. And another multi-way pot. So this is seeming to be pretty decent as we've seen some action here. Players like KenFab, 60% of hands played. Inception, 2015 seems pretty decent. And a lot of hands played, 4,500. Wow. And Pebble Spider, 3322, a little bit on the looser side. Big D here, 3318. Kangaroo we saw was really loose. And how about me? I'm 2116 over 267 hands. So definitely on the snugger side of things. 2-3, that's an easy fold. Just going to be some folding. So we'll look and see what other players are doing, how they're playing. Notice KenFab is not reloading, only at $134. Kangaroo is still over here with the 122. So these players are just likely going to go broke. They're likely bad. They're not topping off. That's a big sign of a bad player. $11 raise, pretty slim raise here. Again, I'm making it 20 when I'm opening. There's $4 in dead money in the ante. Triple the straddle and adding the other blinds. So KenFab did raise. Gorilla Math called in the straddle. It went check, check on the flop, it looked like. So this could be another good board for KenFab to bet in position. But KenFab just totally gives up. And Gorilla Math takes it down with who knows what. On to the next hand, 8-2. It could be a good blackjack hand, but we're not playing blackjack. KenFab raising again. And we can see here the preflop raise percentage 22, so it's pretty reasonable. Pebble Spider raising here. So this is a raise and a re-raise, which is known as a 3-bet preflop. And a min raise, pretty bad. Pebble Spider, 3322 on the looser side. We know min raise like that preflop, pretty bad usually. And just folds to the all-in from KenFab. KenFab had a pretty short stack there, so I don't know what that was. But usually pretty bad to just min raise preflop because the other player is just not going to fold. And if you have hands like ace, king, ace, queen, you really don't mind if some hands fold. Perhaps you want the action more if you have bigger pairs when you re-raise preflop, but generally staying away from the min raise. And here, KenFab just limping into the pot. So instead of taking an aggressive action, they just called the straddle, which is another bad thing to do generally. And Pebble raised. We have a raise from Inception, a re-raised. So we're getting some big bets. This is probably going to get all in at this point. If Inception re-raises, Pebble's probably just going to go all in. Now, he can't really fold here when it's 46 to 81, which was almost a min raise preflop. Inception just getting a fantastic price to call. That's really, really tight for Inception just to fold there. If we have about 100 in the pot and he only has to call like 20 or 30 to see a flop, I just don't see how Inception can be folding unless that was just some stone cold bluff, which really wouldn't get against a loose player like that. So here we have more action. Kangaroos back in the pot, really splashy. I just folded the Jack 3. It would have flopped 2 pair, but we don't want to think like that. Oh, I could have played Jack 3 and flopped 2 pair. This hand's just going to be garbage most of the time. So Gorilla Matt's betting $95 in the pot. And yep, it's probably going to go all in whether Gorilla does it or Kangaroo leads on the turn. So we'll see what this could possibly be. Gorilla Math just folds. Maybe just high cards there. Pocket 9s, pocket 10s. Do not know. Pocket aces, best starting hand in poker. So we're looking at creating a pot here, getting more money in, and hopefully making some money. And Big D already started doing that with the $11 raise. So I'm going to re-raise. I have aces. I want to create a pot, get more money, raise it to out of position. I like re-raising it about 4x. So we'll make it $41, 11 to 41. You see there was a timer there. I'm talking and doing this at the same time. 8 do 6. So we could bet a third of the pot is generally what people do in these 3-bet pots. But I'm going to bet about 2/3, hoping that they have pocket 9s or better and will not fold. So we go about 100 to the flop and had about 3 behind. So we're probably just going to get all in time. On this, we get a neutral turn card. It's unlikely they have a 6. in a pot like this. So we're going to set up to get all the money in on the river. So I think 130 betting will get us that, will accomplish that goal. We just can't fold at this point. Hopefully they don't have pocket queens, but we just got to bet here and get the money in. We don't want to check and then they check back like jacks or tens or something like that. So we're just going to get it in. And big D folds. So we win that pot. And for the purposes of our playthrough, as we're looking at getting through this money we deposited, we just bet $400 in that hand or $400 sweepstakes coins. So the playthrough gets there. We just folded the ace deuce here in the big blind. Perhaps it can be a call as Ken Fab calls, or we take a more aggressive action. So maybe a little bit of a tight fold there as we probably could have raised, but still analyzing that previous hand and talking through some things. So as we'll go back to the lobby. We can't see the lobby now because it would forfeit our space at the table, which is perhaps a weakness at the site. It would just be nice to see where we stand at the moment. But if you're tracking your playthrough, you can perhaps sit out maybe every half hour or so and see how much you've played through. But I know that before this session, I still had a long way to go. Ken Fab raised, Pebble called. So we have 9-9-7 on the flop, 2 spades, 1 diamond. The king on the turn, an overcard, a classic scare card. So that's interesting. If Ken Fab were bluffing on the flop, this is a great card on the turn to bet, as it can get Pebble to fold out hands like pocket sixes, pocket fives, random overcards to the board. Yeah. So Ken Fab had the 7-3 for 2 pair on the flop, a pretty lame hand to raise with pre-flop, and could have bet that turn and perhaps got a lot of hands to fold. Pebble ended up having the king there, so Ken Fab got unlucky. But this is the idea that when you make this continuation bet, you raise pre-flop, you bet the flop. And when you get a high card on the turn like that, a lot of the times when you just don't really have much, it's a good opportunity to bet again. So now we have this like ding dong betting 11, 22, 44. He's like really small bets. Kangaroo's all in pre-flop. Oh, Kangaroo got the aces and improved to 3 of a kind. Ken Fab just stacking off of pocket nines. Probably a bad thing there. That's pretty loose. So you see there's some loose action on this site, as we saw some players earlier that seem to have some decent statistics. But then we get like pocket nines all in. We get these weird bet sizing. So I think this site is pretty good, pretty soft. And even playing through my $6,000 I deposited, I think I'll play more, especially when on the go, when not at casinos, maybe some downtime, just playing a reasonably tight game, just playing good poker, waiting for opportunities, not playing trash hands like Queen 5 offsuit, just having some patience. And Kangaroo's at it again, min raising pre-flop. So this player's just been doing a lot of bad things. And now co-rose raises, and this is a reasonable raise size to go from 8 to 28. So I like that. Unlike in the previous hands, we saw like 11 to 22 to 44, just some weird sizings. So co-rose should probably be betting this 100% of the time. Kangaroo leads $25 into this $75 pot, very small size, and probably not a play to do because co-rose is very likely going to have the pocket tens, the pocket jacks, queen, kings, aces, ace, king, ace, queen. It's going to call. So I don't think Kangaroo is going to get too many hands to fold. And Rose 30-18, a little bit on the tighter side, a little bit looser on that VPIP, 30% and 18, a little bit of a gap there. But Rose is easily potentially having the overpairs to the board or the 3 of the kinds, jack, 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 10, 10, 10. So I think maybe it can get the ace, king, ace, queen to fold here on the river when Kangaroo bets again. But I think a lot of the times co-rose could easily have the overpairs. So I don't really like the bet from him there, but gets through. Co-rose probably missed. So ace, king, this is a really good starting hand. So we're going to make it 20 under the gun. This is a hand that has the potential to get all in pre-flop even, especially against the looser players. We can possibly get them to fold off their 9s and 10s of the world that they might re-raise with. We'll see what happens here. We can look at the statistics of the players and adjust accordingly. We know Kangaroo's playing a loose game, And a 3-bet pot, again, we're going to be betting like a third the size of the pot. We could probably get the weak pairs to fold. I'm running out of time here a little bit. All right, so we're betting about a third, hoping to get the deuces, threes, four, fives, the world out. So we improved top pair, and this is a good opportunity to bet. I like a 2/3 sizing here. We have to use this slider and try to bet. So we can still get called by random jacks, some pair plus draw type hands, and he goes all in. It sucks for us, but we know this player is pretty loose and aggressive. So we could make the call here. We could fold if they got 2 pair. We're unlucky. They probably would have raised. I'm going to call it against this loose player. 10 queen. They make the straight. So we lose. We could fold this ace king sometimes against tighter players, but against a looser player like that, probably not. They could also have the same hand. So sucks for us. We improved to top pair. They improved to a straight. So unfortunately, losing that pot and that hand. We are at $4 here in the straddle with a 10-4. So we don't have to bet anything additional to see a flop. I'm curious as to what happens if I hit the 15-second countdown. Does it give me additional time or does it just fold my hand? I guess I could figure that out in the future, but I didn't want to risk folding there, especially against a looser player like that. And I believe we also had the straight draw as well. So we not only have the top pair, but we could have improved to a straight on that hand, I believe. So it sucks for us. But against a player that we've seen was like really spazzy, really aggressive, really loose, it's harder to fold those top pair, top kicker type hands. And you would think if he flopped 3 of a kind that he would have raised with that on the flop. But we do run into the straight and get unlucky. Pocket eights, we're going to call here and see a flop. This is an under the gun raise, so this is usually a tighter range of hands. So I don't like re-raising with the pocket eights here against the under the gun raise. So we're just going to check to the pre-flop raiser. Bad board for us. 3 hearts, no 8. Really no draw here, but they check. So I think we can bet here and potentially take it down, which is fine against some like random overcards. We could possibly get action from a lone like ace of clubs, but they raise, so it's not good for us. Pocket eights, we just can't do anything here. We just have to fold, but we'll rebuy first. I suppose we could test this 15-second timer and see what happens. If we time out, do we get additional time? Oh, we do get a little bit of additional time. Not your turn yet. I don't know what that's about. But I folded, so that's fine. So it did give us additional time. Not sure how the time bank works. Sometimes on these sites, you get some extra time as you play. You accumulate time, so you get extra time to make decisions past that 15 seconds. 9-8 offsuit. Really not liking that hand in the small blind. There's a pre-flop raise from Ken Fab. Not going to call that offsuit. Really suited, probably just a fold in the small blind heads up here. Some of the other players might come along, but this is a hand that can get you in trouble. We would have flopped the bottom end of an open-ended straight with 8, 9, 10 jack. But even if we make the straight, we're on the bad end of it. So probably would still have the best hand, but best to get the better end of the straight where we can. Okay. Captain Kangaroo, look at this. Queen 8. Okay, so they got, okay, they ended up making the straight there. Just weird all-in bet. I don't know what that's all about. Actually, this is a playable hand, the ace 6. If it folds to us, we can raise here. Try to take down. Okay. So Ken Fab limps in. Our raise size was normally 20. And with the limp in of 4, we're just going to raise to 24. Or I did 23 here with the slider. Pretty much the same thing. We're making the raise size a little bit bigger because Ken Fab added money to the pot. Classic C-bet scenario here. Go around $50. We don't have anything, but we're hoping that we can just take it down here with the bet. And we do with the ace high. On King Jack 4, no flush draw. I think they're going to miss, especially as they're looser players. But if we had a flop, maybe like 8, 9, 10 of 2 suits with a 2 flush, then maybe that's a board where we don't fire when we just have nothing. But on a kind of disconnected board like that, king jack, low card, no flush possibility, it's a good c betting opportunity. So we take down a pot there, even though we don't really have much. So it's just the power of position and aggression. We're working to get back some of our money we lost earlier against this reckless player. And they had like $60 and they ran it up to $850. So hopefully can get in some hands and get paid later. Next hand, 5-10 offsuit, pretty easy fold in this early position. Pre-flop, we're not going to be calling pre-flop raises with such disconnected hands. If we had some straight potential, perhaps like a 10-8 suited, queen 10 suited, some hands like that I think are okay. We should probably play tighter as we're in worse position. So a hand like 7-10 suited against the pre-flop raiser, probably a fold. 6-5 suited, a little bit better. I just fold this here. I don't want to open in such early position, so many other players to have to contend with and playing hands out of position. Now, if I'm in later position and there's a pre-flop raise, I like calling this more, especially if I'm on the button. You get the ultimate position in the hand, meaning I'm acting last. And we would have had a flush draw on the flop and a potential to get a straight with the 4-5-6. Two other cards to come. So Big D was the raiser here. Smirk and Kangaroo called, and Big D just checks. So it's unlikely that Big D has a made hand on this unless they're intending to check and raise. But most of the time it's probably up. There it is, the check raise. So this could be three of a kind. It could be the queen 10. It could be like an ace king of diamonds, ace jack of diamonds, the powerful combination draw for the flush and the straight. 6-7 offsuit. That's just going to be a fold under the gun. We've seen Ken Fab limping in a lot of hands. Kangaroo, min raises to 8. So more bad play here. Just be wanting to make bigger raises. So there's a reasonable raise size. Raising 3x the 8. 3x-ish the 8. I don't see if there's a way to type in a number. It seems like you just have to use the slider. So this is a spot that Smirk should probably just bet most of the time and just checks, which is interesting. We know Kangaroo's very loose, playing a lot of hands. Smirk has position. This isn't a flop that's going to connect a lot with Kangaroo calling the re-raise pre-flop. And Smirk just totally gives up. Very interesting. Jack 6-5 rainbow board, no flush draw. It's going to be a bet a lot of the times, heads up in a 3-bet pot. 30-14. Small sample size there, so not too loose. 14% pre-flop raising. All right, we have 7-8 offsuit in the straddle. We should probably just fold this hand if it folds to us, as we're out of position, and this is a speculative hand. But if these players call, we get a pretty good price to see a flop, but Inception raises to 60. It's a very easy fold for us. I like the raise size, so we're at like 15 here times 4 for 60. It's a $14 raise. We went a little bit up, but that's okay. Just making an even number. Not raising to 28 like we've seen earlier. Okay, so it's a great board for Inception to follow up with a bet. I'd probably bet about 45 here. He bets 37. That's fine. So on this board, ace 8-7, it's going to be more of a static board, meaning there's no overcard to come since the ace is out here. So if Inception is the hand like ace king, is probably loving life, as long as he doesn't run into a straight like I did earlier and gets raised. Interesting. And calls. So Inception likely has a strong hand here calling that pre-flop raise. Smirk raising with, I don't know what, maybe a 9-10 suited, maybe an ace queen, ace jack type hand. Wouldn't necessarily raise if I had the ace queen or ace king. I'd like to keep Inception bluffs in. So it went check. Inception maybe checking with the ace to try to induce a bet on the river. By Smirk that just checked on the turn. We'll see what happens. Smirk all in. Interesting. See what happens here. What can this possibly be? Did Smirk get lucky and get the ace 10, decided to check the turn, got there on the river? King queen, nothing. And Inception calls it off with pocket nines. Wow. So that's interesting. Just had nothing on the flop, raised on the flop of the bluff, but then just checked the turn and decided to all in on the river. So if I were Smirk in that situation, if I were to bluff raise on the flop, I would be betting again on the turn to try to get some hands to fold rather than check turn, bet river. The line really doesn't seem to make much sense. Doesn't represent much because wouldn't a hand bet again on the turn, I would think. Inception making a loose call there, calling off of pocket nines on the ace high board. I don't think he had a straight. I don't think there was a set there, pretty kind. So some aggressive action, some bad play there. Inception, making the hero call and be right after that check turn bet river by Smirk. King 7 offsuit, just a garbage hand. It sucks. Our player over here, Captain Kangaroo, left us. Rose raises, Pebble calls. 6-3-3 on the flop, 2 hearts. Rose should probably bet this a very large percentage at the time. Pre-flop raiser, a small bet of $8 into looked like a 30-ish dollar pot. Very odd. And a single raised hand probably should be betting bigger to try to get some hands to fold or get more money in against hands she's ahead of. Ace on the river favors Rose, not necessarily Pebble. If I had an ace here and our Rose, I'd bet pretty small, try to get called by worse, not bet big and try to force out a hand like sevens. King 7 offsuit, just a garbage hand here. Not even worth stealing, I don't think. Just trying to play a little bit tighter with the straddle dynamics. Rose raises to 12, gets called in multiple spots, and 7-7-6. So this is a more coordinated board as there are more straight possibilities, 2 hearts for flush possibilities. So if I were Rose here and I just had air, something like a Jack 10, no hearts, I would just probably give up here. I would just check. So for Rose to bet, if Rose is competent, Rose has a decent hand. Smirk goes all in. And 4-5 for the straight draw on the flop. Rose had pocket queens and makes a full house. Wins. Turned the straight, but ended up not being good. So now we have a good hand here with the pocket jacks. We will raise to 20. If we could figure out the slider here, we'll go to 19 to not time out. Smirk's gone. So Inception we saw earlier re-raised with the pocket nines pre-flop. Just folds here. So it's a winner with pocket jacks. Moving on to the next hand. 10-3 offsuit, pretty easy fold. So if you're new to poker, you're learning this, you're going to find pre-flop charts that will recommend which hands to play in different positions that you could use as a baseline and then adjust as you get more comfortable with your game, perhaps on the more aggressive side. And then you're going to make adjustments based on how the players are playing. So you're on the button and the players to your left are tighter. You're probably going to be raising more and trying to steal the blinds and straddle. If they're looser, maybe you're going to raise bigger with your premium hands because you know they're just going to call anyway. So there are different adjustments that you can make, but the hand charts could be a good start to it. Again, checking out sites like Red Chip Poker, Crush Live Poker. Wow. So Ken Fab went all in with a short stack and got called by 10-7 suited from Big D, who's accumulated a pretty big stack. So it's a loose call off. Pre-flop, another garbage hand here. New player, Coyote Pride, 27-17. Looks all right stats-wise. And Big D, 33-18, definitely on the looser side. And we saw that last hand, Smirk is back. Unfortunately, Kangaroo has left us. Coming up on about 45 minutes of the video, we'll go to about an hour. You've seen a few hand examples. Had a winner with pocket aces, but then ran into it with ace king, got unlucky there. And some smaller pots. Pocket eights. We have potential here going up to 24, 28. We'll go around 25 here. Adding additional money because I'm out of position. So I want to make the raises a little bit bigger out of position. We don't want people to call as much when we have these like medium-ish hands. But with most pocket pairs, I'm just going to be raising pre-flop, assuming that it folded to me or players limped in. We'll add a little bit of additional out of position. We'll add a little bit of an additional when players are limping into the pot. Rose makes an early position raise. We make an easy fold with 10-6 offsuit. Rose gets called in 2 spots. We see queen of hearts, 9 of hearts, 3 of clubs. This should be a bet, I think, most of the time by Rose. It's a little bit coordinated with the queen and the 9 out there, making some straights. Rose checks it back, so likely doesn't have a big hand. She was the last one to and checked. Could possibly have an ace-king type hand. Ace-10 could be a good bet here, as Rose picked up additional equity, chances to win. But big D bet, Rose called. So now the run out is a jack of diamonds and an ace of hearts. Rose bets big, almost pot on the river. The flush comes in, straights come in, and Rose just folds. Back to us, pocket 9s. Another raise here, go to 20. Pocket pairs folding to me. I am raising with all the pocket pairs, hoping to get 3 of a kind or better. And we get raised by Pebble. So with the pocket 9s, I think this is a pretty easy defend. It goes from 20 to 42. So we're getting a great price to make a call here and hopefully get a flop that favors us. But Smirk re-raises to 114. So I think the only option here really is to go all in or fold. I think folding is the safe bet here. We looked at the stats. They didn't seem to be too out of line. So I think we can fold. We don't want to call $80 and try to see a flop here. The math just really doesn't go for us, and we could potentially get re-raised out by Pebble Spider if they go all in. So with a raise and a re-raise, I think a pretty safe fold with our medium pocket pairs or worse. It'd be interesting if we had a hand like ace king. I think that'd be a good all in. And if we had queens, kings, aces, I like that as well. If we knew Smirk was really out of line, perhaps there could be some all ins, but I'm just not calling in that spot almost ever. So unfortunately, we fold. Moving on to the next hand, 9-8 off. We're not in great position here. I think it's just an easy click fold. Ken raises to 11. Just fold anyway. On the hijack, 2 off from the button. It's just not great position here. Not such a great hand. This could be a hand if we're on the button. Perhaps we can call a pre-flop raise. If it's multi-way, we'll like that. More players in the pot, more chances to win money with this quote unquote drawing hand that we're more looking for. Straight queen 8 suited. I think easy fold here. Again, bad position. Better than the previous hand, but these cards are pretty disconnected. We're in early position. So playing on the tighter side here, playing a little bit more conservatively, I think it's fine to just fold the queen 8. Later position, perhaps we can get involved, but I think most of the time we're fine to just fold here. Ken raising a lot. See 22%. The last few hands have been raising. So as they raise more, you think that maybe they're semi-bluffing or bluffing, or they're not really having mega premium hands, but they could just be getting lucky and getting several. But we'll see what happens. We also see that Ken Fab is playing a short stack, so they're probably a bad player. Probably more on the aggressive side rather than just getting hands, but could be getting lucky and getting hands. We'll see what happens here. Rose goes all in on the river. 9-6, so just like nonsense there pretty much. Co-rose rivered the straight, went all in. Had the straight draw going and Ken Fab sitting out, maybe reloading. We'll find out. 9 deuce, a great blackjack hand, but a bad poker hand. So easy fold here, even though the raise is to 10, we just have trash. So pretty easy fold. If we had the 9-8, 9-7, at least there's some straight potential. There's some connectedness in our 2 cards. But 9 deuce, pretty bad. So we'll see what happens here. 3 to a flush comes out. Straight possibility on the board. The 4, 5, 6 and the ace. King, queen, and Rose made the ace on the turn. Coyote gave up. But I believe there was a bet on the turn, which was good. That would get a lot of hands to possibly fold when an overcard came out. The classic scare card scenario. I think this would be a fine raise rather than just folding, but Inception raises, so we'll just get out. Earlier made a tight fold, just folded a hand like this pre-flop. This could have been an opportunity to try to steal the money, steal the antes and the straddle. So again, Inception raises preflop, gets a board 8-4-4, which should be a great board to just bet, even if Inception has air, just random cards. Probably take it down. Although maybe check this board if he had a full house, 8-8 specifically, because really dominating the board. But most of the time, as a preflop raiser, I would just be following up and betting on this board because you're just going to get a lot of hands to fold when you miss and take advantage with aggression. So I'm not sure what that's all about. Inception, what, just waiting on a good flop and then only betting when they have a good hand, because that should be a flop to continuation bet or C bet, very large percentage at the time. Coming up on 50 minutes, we'll play for about 10 more minutes in this video. If you have questions, you have comments, feedback, feel free to leave it in the comment section on YouTube. Be happy to hear from you. If you'd like to see more of these videos in the future, more poker, more strategy, more gambling, I'll be happy to continue to deliver it. This may be new for many of you in Points and Miles. It's quite the journey to learn about this game. It's more complicated than blackjack and many other games, but the payoff is there to make money from a game against other bad players. You're not playing the house, you're playing other people. And $6,000 a month in spend on credit cards into this, and maybe larger limits in the future. We will see. But so far, it's been smooth sailing with credit card deposits. No fee, no cash advance, no anything. So thank you, ClubWPT Gold, for allowing credit card as a funding option. I've been using Visa credit cards, and I know others have been using American Express. They're not accepting MasterCard at this time for some reason. I think that it would be Amex that they wouldn't accept because usually it's higher transaction fees. And Co-Rose takes it down. The flopped queen. Two new players, 10-5, garbage hand. This player, Rakers, playing 54% of hands, very loose, over a sample of 554. And Mr. Disgustington, 33-17, also on the looser side. My stats here, 21-16. So you could see that as people go away from these, they're playing too loose. This is a game of patience. It's a game of waiting for spots, not playing 50% of hands. We're just here to be a good player rather than reckless, rather than too loose. And you're just getting involved in all these bad situations. Rakers open limps under the gun. So red flag, bad player. We already see they're playing 54% of hands. Really bad versus I'm here at 21%. So it's quite a discrepancy here. Coyote raising 20. Inception thinking. The site only allows you to play one table at a time, so it can seem slow. If you've played online before, you've probably multi-table. Really coordinated board, 9-7-6, 2 diamonds. So if I were Coyote here and had something like Ace Jack, Queen King, or just didn't have much potential, maybe this could be a board to one and done, to bet the flop and then give up if called, if not improving. Because if Rakers calls, they likely have something and they're not as interested in folding. We know Rakers is a looser player. And no diamond. The 4-5 makes a straight, which Coyote could possibly be raising with. But now check. Rakers checks the river. I think this would be a great bet for Rakers as Coyote seems to give up. Queen 7. So Rakers had a pair and wins. So limped in with Queen 7, called a preflop raise with Queen 7. So again, the signs of bad play. And then Rakers, I think, perhaps check call the river there with the pair. If Rakers miss, that'd be a good betting opportunity, but they're probably not thinking about that. We have a raise to 11 from Big D. Mr. calls, Rakers calls. 10-6 deuce So this is a different type of flop. It's not as coordinated as we've seen before. Big D continuation bets here, 20 into the $40 pot. That's now 60. And one fold. And the loose player rakers folds. So Big D takes it down. So this would be another board where if they had something like the Jack King, Jack Queen, just hands that didn't really connect, just bet anyway. And a lot of times you're just going to take it down on that mostly disconnected board. Queen 6, we're continuing to get nonsense. Probably going to be a fold here, but it could fold to us. Or we just check and see a flop if someone calls. A $55 raise. Oh, okay. So Smirk made it 14 and then 55. Okay. All right. So it wasn't just an open $55 raise. So this is about 4x reasonable here from this player's on the tighter side, 2015. I'm at 2016. So Inception doing some things right, although I think it's too passive on certain boards before. King Queen, we have a playable hand. Smirk, 29%, VPIP, 15% pre-flop raise. If this were a more aggressive player that were raising, I can see re-raising here and trying to get Smirk to fold. But Smirk is in like middle-ish position. I think it's fine to just call in this spot. There are some who would just play a re-raise or fold game, but I think it's okay to call. We flop middle pair. D also calls. So we probably can call one bet here, hoping that Smirk is just betting with any two and doesn't have the ace. So we're going to call at least one bet here. Bets 20 into the $40 pot, about half pot. We call with second pair. We also have a straight potential. We pick up a straight draw. The 10 would give us a straight. We'll check here to the razor. Not a good thing that Big D called because Big D could have the ace and we're in very bad shape. But it goes check, check. So we're hoping to see showdown here with the king. I don't see any purpose for betting here. We're not going to get an ace to fold. And what are we getting called by that's weaker? So we end up actually winning with second pair, improving versus Smirk's pocket queens. So we make a hand and get paid. But if we were to bet there on the river, like what are we getting called by? Except for hands we're losing to. And we don't need to bluff. Again, I don't think we're ever getting an ace to fold in that scenario where it checks through on the turn and a player still has top pair. Just most people are just not folding top pair in that spot. So I think the check was fine. Like a small bet on the river, like would Big D call with the king 10, the king 9, whatever, like non two pair king that we're ahead of. It's pretty close, I think. So I think it's fine to check and see a showdown. And I think when Smirk checked the turn, they didn't have the ace. So there could be a check call on the river if Smirk happened to bet there. 9-3 offsuit, more trash. So we ended up winning an okay pot there. Had some hands earlier in the video. Unfortunately, lost with the ace queen suited early in the video. We got it in good versus the king 10. Our ace king lost to straight when we had the top pair against a loose player. So some ups, some downs of poker. We can't guarantee a win every session, of course. We're going to play for the long run, just play solid poker. And on here, look to hit our playthrough before we withdraw. They actually won't let you withdraw until you've played through all of the funds. So this is Justin Vacula from the Hurdy Gurdy Travel Podcast signing off. ClubWPT Gold. Stay tuned for more content. If you're new to the channel, you can look into my back catalog of other gambling videos, particularly online blackjack. I have other content about earning status with Caesars and MGM. They're using credit cards and online blackjack. A lot of general travel videos. Recording here February 2nd. I'm in Las Vegas. I've recorded several videos from Las Vegas hotels. You could see different rooms and stay tuned for more content.